Hello everyone, I wanted to jump in this video today to discuss basically all of the things that we have done so far for the design system at Plasma throughout this year. It may not be quite as apparent, but we have done a lot of changes and the project seems to be going well. And I wanted to show you, well, tell you more about this. This is more of a presentation style video, so you won't see a lot of graphics on the background. And so if you want to come along for the ride, welcome to do so. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to discuss was the current progress of the ocean style. And this is a multi-part thing. It's not just a style, it's a lot of things. Um, Ocean is more of a concept that organizes the graphic design around Plasma. Right now, we don't have this kind of organization, and it's really difficult for developers and designers to actually communicate when it comes to design decisions. And not only that, many of us face challenges when it comes to building understandable UI that it's easy to communicate to users with. This is not our intention, of course, but at the same time, we haven't had a great solution for that problem either. And for that reason, one of the things that we decided early on in discussions with our teams about what we needed to do was basically get us organized around graphics. Right now, our communication graphic wise to developers is not the best. And so the Ocean Design uh, initiative was born from this. And our intention was to build not just new styles, new icons, new graphics. It's not just pixels, but on the background, it's a new organization around graphics. And it's powered by applications such as Penpot or Figma that are specialized graphical applications that help you create entire design systems that people can use and apply. The benefits of these design systems is vast. For one, it becomes the design system in these applications become the source of truth for how design is to be implemented in a system. And not only that, it organizes designers around their creations, their graphics. In the past, of course, we would just sort of build a mock-up for a window or for a button or for whatever UI component you needed. And this was just out of what we could do with the tools we had, but not necessarily reflective one-to-one with what the system needed to see. And that, of course, is subject to interpretation. Once you send that over to a developer for implementation, they will ask a lot of questions that define this design further. But if you don't have that in your source graphic, then of course it's much harder to have that conversation. However, we built a system anyway around that. We call it Breeze, and we've over the years we've done a lot of work to make this a very strong and fully compatible style. But the part around the organization for designers is still not there. So with this initiative, we have done a lot of stuff. We started by creating icons, and we quickly developed more into building small components, small foundational tokens. And now what we have so far in Penpot is more of a second level of component building. And I'll explain what that means. But in 2025, we did a lot of stuff to get this going. This effort started in 2023, then it bled into 2024, and now we're in 2025. Since then, we've done multiple presentations at Academy and other gatherings around what this initiative is, and we've received a lot of support and a lot of interest from people out in the internet. Whenever actually I release a video, I get a few comments, very positive comments around hey, this is exactly what we need. This people want to work more closely with a well-developed design, and also, we want improvements, or people have decided that new feels better, so we also want to tailor to that. So with that in mind, we created a few things this year. So in 2025, our progress developed mostly into a migration. But additional to that, we created a wiki page that explains most of the things and ins and outs of what the design system does and why we're building or pushing for this. And we also finally were able to finish all of our monochrome icons. We're very excited for that. And we still have application icons that require more time, more thinking, more development. But fortunately, it's not as many as the other monochrome icons. We also completed our foundation building for the design system. Basically, these are the most primitive elements of the design, such as typography, color, icons, spacings, blurs, shadows, and all, and basically anything that sort of needs to stay the same all the time. Core foundational elements of the design. And then we finished this in Penpot, and we moved our assets out of Figma into Penpot for this. And we also had multiple meetings actually this year uh, with people from Union, as a side as a main project for Plasma. We will be working directly with the Union team to develop ocean assets in code. This is not the same as developing the graphics. The graphics are pretty much done and created, and it's just a matter of digging through them to build the actual system components. But also, Union is preparing for technical release, and this is early days for the Union engine, and they are working really hard to get this done. So it probably we're not going to see more components built into code this year, likely next year, in 2026. That is not, in any way a problem. We don't have a deadline either. So I would just say that for those folks who are interested in ocean design, I think you will see more news in the coming year. However, with that progress, the Union team built us a proof of concept of a button based on design system ideas. So basically, color tokens being used in an actual piece of code that developed for a button, with all the basically the spacings that the design system is telling you to use, and see how easy that process it is. There is more work to be done there, of course. We need to make it easier for developers to see this work. Previously, Penpot particularly did not have as many graphical communicators on screen that could actually tell you what's going on, and you had to do a lot of clicking before you understood what the component was doing. But now they've simplified some of that, and it's made it easier also for designers. We also had a couple of meetings this year with the Penpot team, and we stayed very close in touch with them. We are still in the process of waiting for access to their beta engine for the rendering screen, so that it's much easier and much faster for us to apply a lot of changes. My understanding from the Penpot team is that this new rendering engine will make it much easier to actually bring our icons finally to Penpot. They're also moving a lot of code into the new rendering engine for fixes that are long time fixes, rather than applying them in the current state where they might not actually work that well, and it might be replaced for a new engine anyway. So they're moving a lot of development that way. That's as far as we understand. And we were also able to set up a workshop with them. We will be working with the Penpot team during FOSDEM in Europe to develop ways to actually share design systems a little bit easier for to basically to broad audiences, to distributed teams, the way that we work in Plasma. We have noticed that today's abilities to share the content with others requires that others sign up for the instance that you have. But in our case, I think what is difficult is that it's hard to give access to anyone on the internet or who is interested without having a good understanding of what they can or cannot do. And the tool having the ability to close things off and to publish others and basically adapt to the way that people consume these things. I think that there's a lot to be said about what we could do there, and we would like to provide that feedback to the Penpot team directly, and we will have a chance next year. With this change, also, this year we decided to close the Ocean channels on Matrix because the amount of people that actually participated in the Ocean discussions was growing a lot. And that's not a bad thing, except that it was sort of becoming its own little team on the side, and that's not what we want to do. We want to democratize the understanding that people have about Ocean components and Ocean design. And for that reason, we closed the channel and we moved all of our team members back into the main visual design channel in Matrix, so that also those people who have been in that channel for a long time and haven't received news or updates about Ocean design can now get that understanding, and we can basically explain even further and with a greater reach about what's happening. More than anything, I think the visual design channel has a lot of developer people that can help us understand what works and what doesn't work when it comes to design. And so now it's basically the time to open up and share more broadly about this initiative. Now, let me talk about the next thing. It's our migration. So I want to basically, first of all, say thank you to the Penpot team. They have done a fantastic job at building their platform and building more functionality into the tool. And this allowed us actually to migrate everything but our icons from Figma to Penpot. And this is a huge milestone because previously we couldn't do that, particularly because Figma works in using variants and using instances and different variables and tokens. And this year the team at Penpot worked really hard to actually implement similar things in Penpot. And now, as soon as, for example, we got the news that they were able to execute variants, we jumped in and started working on building our assets. So if you can imagine, in a design system, you have your foundational elements, then you have the first line of component building, which is basically atomic components like a button, a scroll bar, an icon, a segmented button, a checkbox, a radio button, all of those things, like the most sort of monofunctional type of components in a system. We brought those over as well, so they're not just in Figma. Not only that, it's common knowledge. Figma, we were using Untitled UI, the free version of Untitled UI, to be our base and inspiration to build Ocean assets. And there was a lot of branding that was that accompanied those designs in Figma, just because of the nature of the way the graphics were made. But an opportunity presented itself to bring those over to Penpot, where we just need to build the assets. We can shed all the extra baggage and branding, and we just focus on our execution of these elements on screen. So all of that moved as well. And most recently, for now 2 to 3 months actually, we have been working on building sort of the second layer, the second level of components. These components basically are more like akin to the molecule, if you follow the atomic design, where you pull in all these basic foundational components and you mix them together to build something, for example, like a calendar widget, a navigation separator, or for example, a toolbar, a sidebar, because a sidebar is nothing more than just, a rectangle with a bunch of like a list item, right? So the list item would be the smallest thing, and then you put them in a sidebar and it becomes the bigger component. Now, when you move into this space, these components tend to be more opinionated about the way the design should be. This right here may not necessarily be the reflection of what Plasma will look like in the future, because it will require discussion and understanding and putting different situations in front of the designer so that we can solve for those issues. But the main reason for why they exist today is so that we can have this guidance and this closer vision to what a future with ocean assets will look like, and some of the intricacies of how the designs were executed, so that developers have an easier time understanding the logic behind, putting all of these elements together and how they work. There's a third layer here, which is more like an organism in the atomic design idea, where you put together all of those level of designs, the second layer with the sidebar, the toolbar, the card item, the scroll bars, and the tool tips, and a video screen, whatever, and they build, let's say, dashboards, window views, lists, tables, an upload screen, or for example, some kind of model that tells you how to do something or complete an action. And again, the further you go, the more opinionated these designs are, and because they're combining most of what is already created. But the good thing about it is that all of these designs you can peruse them, you can review, you can drill down to the details of how they were made. And because of that, we were able to bring those files out of Figma into Penpot. And to be honest with you, I have not used Figma in some time, because all I am using it for is for reference, for what we built previously in the previous years and what it needs to look like in Penpot. So that's really cool. And the only thing that we have left in Figma is our icons, because we want to be able to have the same level of control with the shapes and the collections and the building and the componentizing of these elements. We want to have the same thing in Penpot. But today it's not possible. We're still working on it. Some ideas are still happening in the Penpot team that I know for sure they're working on this. So not to worry there. But on the good side, it makes us 100% less reliable on Figma. And it also allows us to actually democratize the access to Penpot a little more. In fact, this year, I created the GitHub page for the ocean assets, where regularly we release the Penpot file that contains the design system. And we also released our icons, and really an early version of our icons, and also an early version of a Plasma style. Now, don't confuse Plasma style for widget style. Those are separate things. The Plasma style is mostly what you see on the shell. It's the taskbar, the panel as we call it, kickoff menus that are basically on screen to help you out. But deeper level, sort of at the union or Qt level, then that's different. So huge milestones. We've closed channels, we migrated our assets, we're waiting on our icons, and we've done a lot of work to basically publish more and more about this initiative. If you are interested in doing some work around graphics for open source, let us know. Actually, I find a very good use case for this when it comes to building a portfolio. If you're a junior designer and you're interested in building a portfolio that you can use for the rest of your life to showcase your work, this is a very good opportunity to do that. You don't necessarily have to go get a job somewhere. You can just contribute to an open source project that can actually get you off the ground, and you can actually deal with real challenges. If you think about it, Actually, Plasma is probably one of the biggest UI managers out there. And because of the reach that Linux has with audiences. And so we face challenges just as much as any other, for-profit company. We work with very awesome, ideas and ecosystems, and we have to implement a lot of, everyday kind of discussion and development communications with our people to get things done. So I see this as a great, great opportunity to just take a look at what we are doing in open source, and at the same time build some of your own knowledge and skill when it comes to graphics. If you're interested in more content about this, click the subscribe button and let us know how you feel about it. Leave us a comment. Other than that, thanks again for a wonderful 2025. Thanks again to all the developers at Plasma and all the designers at Plasma working on this initiative. It means a lot. And we feel that more and more we're closer and closer to developing something amazing for our users. And with that, Happy New Year and see you in 2026.